Portal, a computer game released in December 2007 by Valve Corporation, was met with a lukewarm reception. Only the dedicated gamers played it. Few outsiders were even aware of it. This is a shame because Portal is a brilliant game that anyone can play, with a quirky plot, inspired gameplay, fantastic graphics, mediocre sound, and enlightening extras. Portal's plot is one of its most compelling elements. From the beginning, the player awakens from a storage pod to find that she is in a strange laboratory, the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. A computer called Gladys guides the player through the controls, the puzzles, and the exposition. As the player progresses through the game, Gladys reveals some of the more disturbing experiments that Aperture engages in, but retains an oddly cheery tone. Especially near the game's finale, Gladys's dialogue is witty and sharp. My only complaint is that the game is so short. I finished the game within 3 hours the first time, and after replaying it, I whittled it down to 1 hour. It's a small price to pay, however. With such memorably quirky lines as,
"Did you know you can donate one or all of your vital organs to the Aperture Science Self-Esteem Fund for Girls? It's true."
You can't help but remember Portal. Gameplay in Portal is intuitive and simple. Movement controls are much the same as for other video games, but are displayed on screen in the first 30 seconds for those who don't know them. The portal gun, the central element in the game, allows the player to place portals on walls. Objects placed inside one portal immediately teleport to the other. At first, I was confused by the mechanics of the portal gun, but Valve excels in training players to use the portal gun without thought. Portal's puzzles are challenging but rewarding. The objectives are simple but usually require some warped thinking to solve. For example, one puzzle requires that you place a portal 50 feet below you, then drop yourself into it, only to fling yourself 50 additional feet above where you originally stood to get to a door. The gameplay is innovative without being jarring. The graphics in Portal were amazing for their time. In fact, many of the rendering methods that Portal used are now standard in current titles. For instance, Portal employs a technique called HDR lighting to give the effect that your eye produces when you enter a dark room after being outside, an inconspicuous visual that has worked its way into games like Gears of War 2. Another first is Portal's real-time motion blur. Motion blur softens the edges of the screen when the camera is moved quickly, much in the way the human eye does. Even with the breakthrough graphics, the game works reasonably well on older computers, which is rare amongst recent games. The graphics are not as groundbreaking as, say, Crysis, but Portal still holds up to today's games. The sound design for Portal is probably its weakest point. Portal's diegetic sounds, like the slime oozing at the bottom of many levels, is realistic, but not as important to gameplay as other puzzle games like Myst. The music in Portal is almost as nondescript. Being a musician myself, I usually object to most video games because the music is repetitive and abrasive. Super Mario comes to mind. Portal remains solidly outside of this category, but I still found myself at a loss for how to describe the music. On the whole, there is not that much to say about it. It does not jar the player, but it is not particularly notable either. However, the music for the end credits is highly original and one of the most rewarding end-of-game sequences I have ever experienced. Portal won't be winning a Grammy anytime soon, but I'm sure that was not Valve's intent anyway. One of the newest trends in video games is to include extras like one would find buried in the menus of new blockbuster DVDs. Portal is no exception. It includes developer commentary and time trial challenges. The commentary provides fascinating insight into the evolution of Portal. Much of the commentary discusses gameplay, like the creation of the force fields that prevent you from bringing materials from one level to the next. Time trials add variety to levels that seem familiar, but give a new twist to them. One game mode, for example, limits you to 100 footsteps per level. Another mode restricts how many portals you can use. What makes these challenges interesting is that you can post your records online and brag about them to your friends. The extras in Portal easily add another 3 hours to the gameplay time. Overall, Portal is a fantastic game with a couple acceptable flaws. Portal differentiates itself from the usual fare by harkening back to the early days of the computer entertainment industry when games were not carnage-filled Manson-esque bloodbaths. Instead, Portal retains the roots of puzzle games like Myst and Tetris while being delivered in a three-dimensional, modern package. For those that are not quite as involved in the video game culture, Portal is a delightful diamond.
A flash